Hey folks, audio producer Stormageddon here. Please be advised that this episode carries a content warning for discussion of ableist language, autism-specific abuse, and gaslighting. Just want to give you guys a heads up in case you want to skip this one. With that said, on with the episode.
You're listening to Reignite, a podcast about how Cerberus continues to disappoint. I am MJ.
And I'm Matt, aka Stormageddon.
For this mission, we're joined by professor, historian, and juggler, John Lestrange. Welcome to Reignite.
Thanks. It's great to be back.
I'm very excited to have you on. The last time you were on the show, I was not. As I recall, you and MJ did something together. Was that for N7 Day, if I remember
Yes,
correctly?
that was for N7 Day in Season 1.
Yeah, that was a lot of fun.
I'm glad to have you back on at an opportunity for me to actually get to interact with you as well. We go way back as friends, and you've been a guest on one of my other podcasts as well. But I guess let's start by, John, having you tell the listener a little bit about you and what you do.
So I have a master's degree in Holocaust and Genocide Studies. I got that back in 2017 from Kane University, and since graduating, I've written and self-published 2 books on how genocide is represented in fictional media, specifically cartoons and video games. The second one on video games features Mass Effect very prominently because it makes up half of my available case studies, if you count 1, 2, 3, and Andromeda. So, I deal with exactly the types of things that we deal with in this mission a lot.
So speaking of Mass Effect as a case study, what has your history with Mass Effect been?
I've been playing Mass Effect since the first game came out on Xbox back in 2005. It was a long time ago. No one really cares about the exact date. It's been lost to history. No one knows. It's been around since time immemorial. But Mass Effect was the first game that I played that let me make choices. And it was really cool for me to be able to do things that had an immediate and sometimes profound impact on the narrative. So I played every single Mass Effect game basically as it came out for more times than I should admit on radio. I love these games so much. If I could pick only one video game series to play forever, it would be Mass Effect.
I remember when Andromeda came out, we were fairly fresh into our relationship, and I had suggested, do you just want to come over for the weekend and play Andromeda while I'm at work?
Yeah, I didn't have an Xbox One when it came out, so my only ability to play Andromeda came when I was over at MJ's apartment in Brooklyn, and we weren't doing anything for a bit, so I would just play for a bit. So it took me like half a year to beat it the first time.
I mean, that's still faster than me, as I've yet to play it. So, you're ahead of me
I
there.
called you out in the N7 episode to play Andromeda, and I'm going to do it again because I love you and I want good things for you. Play Andromeda.
I've been banned. I can't play it until we cover it. We have
decided.
So it's beyond my control.
We're going to play in a world where I know everything that's about to happen and Matt doesn't, which is not much different from how we regularly play.
You just really like being the only one that knows what's going on in your podcasts, because you do this to Alex too.
When we get to shows that neither of us have seen, it will be both of us who don't know anything.
I'm just saying, I think that you get a kick out of this.
And I mean, to be fair, I know a lot about Mass Effect 1 and 2, or I did, but apparently the triage of my own brain after not playing them for a long time is very real. 3, I only played through once or twice, so I expect to be even more forgetful with 3 just because I've spent so much less time with it. But that said, it sounds like John is similar to me in the fact that why the game resonated is because it provided a level of choice and direction and connection that a lot of other games haven't. The narrative continuity is a thing that not a lot of other games have. They don't let you upload a previous save file to pick up where you left off. Dragon Age kind of lets you do that, and if we ever get to that, we'll go over that. But like most games, if there's a direct sequel, it just picks up fresh as a new game. And so if there are levels to gain, you have to start over. If there's story connective pieces, it's all pre-programmed. Whereas Mass Effect is something that you get to, affect the whole way through. Pun sort of intended.
After I played Mass Effect, I dove pretty deep into BioWare's other games. So I played KOTOR, and then KOTOR 2, which I think actually isn't BioWare, and I think it's Obsidian. And then I played Jade Empire, but like Jade Empire is a one-off. There's no sequel to it. And KOTOR 2 is made by an entirely different company and is so phenomenally glitch-heavy as to be unplayable at places. So it was a very different experience than Mass Effect, which has the same character across 3 games.
Yeah, I think it's interesting that no other series has tried to capitalize on that. Although I have theories about, as of when we're recording, the Final Fantasy VII Remake has just come out and it's supposed to be multi-part. And like if it's dropping that story somewhere, you've gained levels, unlocked abilities, gained materia. Technically, it's got to do something similar to Mass Effect if you're going to continue the story in a new game, right? And it would be interesting to see if they take any hints from Mass Effect or games like Mass Effect and have like side quests you did in the first game affect the second game, the more minor stuff that we don't know is already going to happen because it's a remake of an existing game. I just wish more games use that mechanic. I think it's really especially super affecting when we're going to talk about stuff today in this episode and some of the characters that we interact with. A lot of the baggage that carried over from the first game about Cerberus is super apparent in this mission, and I'm excited to talk about that.
So we've talked about what your history with Mass Effect has been, and we talked a little bit about what it means to you. What were your ideal choices in a Mass Effect 1 playthrough?
All right, so I always, the Rachni Queen always lived because, killing off the last Rachni Queen is genocide. Also, she's a cool, weird crab bug lady, and that's cool. You don't hurt me, I don't hurt you. We'll just live on opposite ends of the house. It's fine. Rex, sometimes I played through and Rex did not survive Vermeer because I hadn't put enough effort into building up my Paragon options, and I didn't even know about the loyalty quest until my 5th playthrough. But ideally, Rex survives. The Rachni Queen survives. When I first played the game, I regularly romanced Ashley. So she was my Vermeer survivor. But these days, I more lean towards Kaidan because I find Kaidan to be the more palatable character. Ashley Williams and her space racism just get on my nerves. I believe that Mass Effect 2 failed in her character arc in not making her join Cerberus because she absolutely would have. I'm convinced of that. Nowadays, I usually romance Liara because while she is young by Asari terms, and that can be a little weird, in hindsight, she's a big, goofy history nerd who likes to travel around looking for lost civilizations and just gets really passionate about learning stuff, and I find that very endearing and cute. I always make sure that the council survives because it's very important that if humanity is going to, we've been itching for a place in the galactic community all throughout Mass Effect 1, and at the end when the council's lives are at risk, to not step up and try and save them is to say that we don't really care about the broader galaxy. We only care about human advancement in that galaxy. Except when I did a Renegade playthrough, then I killed them with a smile, which I still feel bad about. And always Anderson, never Udina. Udina can die. My God, he's the worst. I hate him so much. He's
Is he the worst though? Because like, Udina versus the Elusive Man, who's really the worst?
well. So then we can turn to Obi-Wan Kenobi for our wisdom here. Who's the bigger fool, the fool or the fool who follows the fool? The Elusive Man might be a piece of shit, but Udina agrees to follow him.
Hey, spoilers.
Oh shit! Right.
Technically,
Not spoilers for Matt, but like someone might be listening who hasn't played yet.
I mean, I have to assume that 90% of our audience has played the trilogy already, but yes, we won't go down that road. Needless to say, Udina is also equally a shitty human.
All three of these games
On
just
multiple
blend
levels.
together into one giant game in my brain, and so I apologize in advance for any future spoilers I give. You've all been warned.
But yeah, I mean, it sounds like, John, you go down a similar Paragon path that both me and MJ do if you're playing conscious, ideally, right? Like, if you're consciously playing a Renegade, which I've done before, then you make all those not so great choices. I shouldn't put a value on them. Those more hardened, cruel choices.
I mean, I'll put a moral value on them. Renegade Shepard is a dick, and he commits war crimes.
I mean, that's true. You're not wrong. But there's a logic to explore when doing those kinds of playthroughs, and I think it's important that we engage in those conversations as well, since it is a game. But you're not wrong.
Okay. Let's get into this summary. The Elusive Man informed us that Project Overlord went off the grid and asked that we investigate. Upon our arrival, we discover that a tragedy occurred, resulting in the slaughter of almost everyone in this project. Dr. Archer informs us that his experiments on the Geth resulted in a rogue VI that is attempting to spread like a virus through the galaxy. As we progress, we discover that Dr. Archer did not tell us the whole truth. Between fighting VI-infected Geth and mechs and observing the anguished cries of the so-called rogue VI, we discover that the mind behind this virus is really David, an autistic math savant forced to participate in his brother's experiment. Shepard fights through to David, who had been plugged into the Geth neural network. Once revealed, Dr. Archer tries to convince Shepard to leave the care of his brother to him, and Shepard must decide between the project and David's welfare.
Yep. I'm going to avoid talking about the story like the plague for the moment, because I'm still not ready, and I'm going to get mad. But that said, John, you chose this mission, and I have an idea of why you chose it, but I'd still love for you to elaborate for us.
So when I did Mass Effect 2 for my book, I paid special attention to Project Overlord because it's one of the grossest human rights abuses and most obvious war crimes throughout the entire game. It is also, in a certain way of putting it, it is an attempt at committing genocide against the Geth. And it is one of the, outside of the Grander Reaper invasion and, the Krogan rebellions and all of the terrible things that happen in the game, it is the single worst thing that I've ever seen a character do in this game.
I would be inclined to agree. I think we're all on the same page there. But that does make sense that it's in line with your studies and your books that you would choose this mission, and we're happy to have you here to discuss it, because we might actually be able to get a little deeper in things that we might not have with a different guest on this episode. So with that said, I think we can move on to our check-ins. We only have one right now, which is Legion. But before we get to that, I wanted to let you know that I did take an opportunity this time to invite Jack up to my room, since you can invite your partner up, and it really kind of sucks. So she sits on your couch, which is fine, and just kind of with that come hither look, but with attitude, because it's Jack. And then when you sit down, she sits on your lap and like so how you and Garrus were cuddling in bed, like she's sitting on your lap and you're awkwardly kind of moving but not doing
Yeah,
anything.
you get that with
Like it's
Garrus,
not like
too.
you're fooling around. Okay, yeah, because the still image looked really like kind of serene. And so when I did this, I went to take a still image to share on the Discord, and I went, "This just looks bad all around. Like the things are phasing through other things. Yeah, we're just gonna pretend this."
You can
didn't
also
happen and move
snuggle
on."
in bed.
Noted. So maybe if I do that with Jack, it'll look better. But sitting on the couch looked terrible.
Sitting on the couch looks awful no matter who it is, I think, because I also
Okay.
had this conversation with John when I was doing it for the first time, because Garrus, like, does that rogue Turian, like, I'm such a badass kind of pose on the couch. And then when you approach him, you're sitting on his lap, and there's a lot of, like, weird jerky movements. And I'm just like, what is happening?
Yeah, that's what happened with Jack.
They are
Yeah.
movements that would be if BioWare knew how to animate hands and arms properly, caresses, and, you're stroking your partner's arm or reaching up to caress their face. But instead, BioWare doesn't know how to animate arms. As we can see, every time a character crosses their arms, it's the worst.
Or anytime characters try to hug.
Ugh.
The hugging is the worst. Well, anyway, moving on from that, though, we have a check-in with Legion, as I recall, which it's nice that they give you an opportunity to, if you choose to do these missions now, to expand on getting to know Legion better.
Honestly, I think it's the only way you can really get to know him, because if you do all your missions before the final mission, like if you do everything before the suicide mission, then the only way to prompt further dialogue with Legion is to do missions. So if you've done everything, you can't prompt further dialogue.
You have had dialogue with Legion that I have never heard before. And I think it's because I do all of the side quests before I go and I do everything before I do the collector. And it's the very last bit of content I have left in the game.
So my conversation with Legion, I feel like it was kind of the capstone of what conversations I can have with him, or with them, rather. And Legion's talking about how the Geth are building their future and what that means. And Legion trusts you with this information, that they're building a mega structure to house all Geth. So that way all of their memories are shared. It will increase their intelligence exponentially. And one key thing that Legion says is no Geth will be alone, which is a huge cultural thing for the Geth. They don't want to be alone. They want to be together. They want to be a unit. And I think, especially going into this particular mission, this is a really important conversation to have had.
Yeah, and I mean, it deals with something that, like, ideally we would think that maybe robots wouldn't feel, right? Like this loneliness, because you would assume that they don't deal in feeling lonely the same way humans do, and they may not. I think what Legion's more talking about is like the physical proximity, the united mind being together, and it's less about feeling alone and more about just feeling part of something, feeling connected in a more physical way or digital way than necessarily an emotional way.
The Geth are hands down the best species in all of these games. They're the only ones that have an actual respect for all lives. They're the only ones that recognize that both synthetic and organic life is actually life. And they're just like, they're deeply and beautifully philosophical beings who also happen to be, perfect murderers. Legion says something in the conversation, because I happened to be sitting with MJ while she was playing so I could get some notes. And he mentions that, the Geth's gods are mortal, which is very telling that still after all this time, they still consider the Quarians to be their gods, their creators, and they still revere them to a certain extent, even as they are afraid of what the creators' response will be to Geth autonomy.
Yeah, it circles back to what we talked about when Rob was on the podcast, that for beings that are completely focused on technology. They speak a lot of philosophy and religion, at least in the language they use, which again, they're speaking a common tongue compiled from what the universe uses as English, because we don't even actually know what language technically everyone's speaking to a degree. I mean, they're speaking English, but like common English in this world versus our English may not necessarily be 100% the same, though we assume it is. But yeah, like a lot of their terms are very much beyond tech, which I think is what makes Legion and the Geth, from this perspective, very fascinating.
This is totally nitpicky, but I actually know the answer to like the language question. Everybody has a translator chit.
I was going to say, I assumed it would be a universal translator a la Star Trek or Animorphs or something.
Yeah.
Well, Animorphs is different.
It's
but
funny that it never. It's funny that it never comes up in dialogue.
It does,
like,
actually.
I imagine it.
Yes.
Really?
It comes up with Thane. I don't know if there's a male Shep equivalent, but Thane calls Fem Shep at least Siha. And when he does, Fem Shep says, I think my translator glitched. I don't know what that word means. And it's because there's no like English equivalent, which is why you get the Drell word instead.
It's because English is a terrible language.
Interesting. Yeah, I think I've romanced Thane in the past. Again, a lot of those playthroughs blur together, but that is interesting. And see, I assumed he just chose to use his own language for that. So that's really interesting. Right. All that said, I think Legion's language and use of language is really fascinating. And one of my favorite things about him, the way, we talked about this before, the way he speaks, the DC Douglas's performance is enrapturing, and everything connected to it. I really love.
I think a big part of what informs upon Legion's character and how they choose to express themselves is revealed in your very first meeting with Legion on the Normandy, when Edie whips out, the call us Legion for we are many verse from the Gospel of Mark, and Legion, recognizes it and cites passage in verse. And I think it's because the Geth have access to so much information that they've cataloged all of the greatest literature and poetry and religion. And so while a lot of writing that they've incorporated is probably deeply scientific, they've also been literally swimming in philosophy and poetry for hundreds of years.
So another thing about this megastructure, the Geth have been building it for 264 years. While John was talking before, I did some quick math. And the Morning War, which is what the war between the Quarians and the Geth was called, took place in 1895. And our game takes place in 2185. So that's 290 years. So shortly after the Morning War is when the Geth decided what they wanted their future to be. And that's when they started building the structure.
I mean, yeah, all the conversations we've had with Legion, it seems like the Geth are pretty determined to achieve what they want. They don't seem like, of course, the war is hindering them in ways that they can't account for, but like for the most part, they are not letting it stop them. They're going to get what they want, regardless.
And honestly, what they want is just to be left alone. They just want to be together.
Sure,
and that's it.
Yeah, after multiple playthroughs, the Quarians, while I like the Quarians, they don't have a leg to stand on for this war, to a degree.
There is one good Quarian, and it's Admiral Chorus. And Tally, eventually. But the rest of them are terrible.
If you read that Cat Valenti book, you'll find another Quarian that you like.
I'm sure that I will.
But I think if that wraps up our conversation on the discussion with Legion, we can move on to the deep dive. Heading off to Hermes Station, the first location of the Overlord DLC. And when we arrive at the station, shit has already gone to hell, which I feel like for Shepard is kind of the usual at this point.
I want to
we should start by...
Hold on, before you get into Hermes Station, there's something that I wanted to say about the star system that Project Overlord takes place in. Because they do a lot of really great stuff with naming in this mission that I really enjoy. The Project Overlord is housed in Typhon. Typhon was, in Greek mythology, the father of monsters with his wife Echidna. They gave birth to Cerberus and, Charybdis and like all of the great monsters of Greek legend. So you are literally heading into the den of monsters at the start of this mission.
Pretty heavy-handed.
I was saying, see, here are the benefits of having a history teacher on your podcast.
I apologize for interrupting you, but I wanted to get that in before we got really into Hermes Station.
No, I appreciate you bringing that up. It's funny, I hear Hermes and I just think Futurama now, which, I mean, is okay, I guess, but not clearly what they're going for. That said, like I was saying, we arrive on Hermes Station and shit has already gone to hell. But before we engage in that, we should, of course, talk about who we brought. I brought Legion and Jack because as long as you have your love interest with you, every mission's a date. I'm going to assume, MJ, that you took at least Garrus.
I took Garrus and Tally for Hermes Station. And then when I found out we were dealing with Geth, on my next opportunity to pick different squad, I picked Legion and Tally, thinking that my husband would understand.
That's fair. I chose Grunt. I chose rather my girlfriend and Legion for every mission that it would let me. But when I went to Prometheus, which is the one after this, and we won't go too far into Prometheus, but I want to bring this up now before I forget. I would load up Prometheus, because you get that little segue thing on the Firewalker where you head to that area of the map, and then you pick your party. First of all, how are we switching party members?
Thank you. Thank you so much. This is my complaint. Why are we switching party members? How is that happening?
I get that they're separate missions within the greater mission, but, there's no way, unless we assume everyone went down in the Firewalker and the rest are just hanging out.
How big is the Firewalker on the inside?
Big
is
enough.
Time Lord?
But big enough.
Time Lord technology? What's happening?
It's comparable to the Mako, because you pull up next to one and it's a little bigger. But that said...
we'll get into the hammerhead.
Because you can... while you can change party members, I wanted to keep the same party, but apparently going to Prometheus, there's a bug only on the PC version that all of the locations you can have Legion with you except Prometheus.
That's so weird.
It crashes the game. It's very weird, and a lot of people have theories that they didn't want to script the Geth interaction, but you were able to bring him on yours, so that's not true. What makes me furious is that this is not a new game. And this is a bug that is known because I literally Googled Prometheus, Legion, just those two words, and found multiple chat threads about this bug. So it's not like it's a fluke. It's a known PC bug across the board. And yet there's never been a patch for it. They've never fixed it. And so now I can't use Legion through the whole mission because of that one bug. Now, I was still able to use Legion during the final part of the final mission, and your companions don't get much to do at Atlas Station anyway, which kind of sucks. But that said, this I'm so angry that this was never patched. It'd be one thing if it was a fluke and only I was getting it, or there was a % chance. But the fact that it's a guarantee that your game will freeze and crash if you choose Legion for Prometheus, drives me effing crazy. But that's enough of that.
So very weird.
Let's go back to Hermes Station.
Are you feeling better now that you got that out of your system? Okay.
I am. Also, I think it's funny that in our outline you listed it Hermes, Prometheus, Vulcan, even though I did Hermes, Vulcan, Prometheus.
I did Prometheus and Vulcan, so I just listed it the way that I did it. It doesn't matter.
It's fine. I mean, they don't affect each other. They're fairly independent. they don't make a difference, and we'll get into why that annoys me a little bit in a bit. But back to Hermes Station. So we arrive. Shit's gone to hell. One cool thing that this mission does that a lot of other missions don't is when you walk up to the TV where Archer's talking from, he talks to you. You don't have to interact with it. It just happens.
Yeah.
It's scripted within the game. And I thought that was fun.
I was creeped out throughout the entire thing. I didn't like the cameras following me around, and I shot every single camera.
I did as well. Though I know I missed some. But yeah, it's really creepy. Like every time the VI acts up, if they're not activated, they definitely activate, and then they try the movements. And it's really creepy.
I thought about it halfway through MJ playing this that I should have kept a count of how many that she shot, but I did look up how many cameras there are throughout these missions, and there are about 44 cameras throughout this. So, ask yourself, did you shoot 43 times or 44 times? Are you feeling lucky, Punk?
I have to reevaluate our marriage now.
That's entirely fair. I expected this when I made that terrible joke. But, I am what I am.
I mean, if you hadn't done it, I might have. So
you wouldn't have.
You falling on that sword for me.
You wouldn't have.
Can I tell you the creepiest thing about Hermes Station? The automatic message that keeps sounding over the loudspeakers that said, where did I have it written down? Secure facility. This is a secure facility. All weapons must be checked. Which means that when the Geth were active, no one had
any weapons.
No one had the ability to defend themselves. And you see in a few places, like people are scattered throughout the whole base, up against walls, in corners, clearly having run away. But there are a few places where people are just in chairs, dead. They never had a chance to so much as move.
Yep. And when you get to the cafeteria area, it gets creepier because now the message that's been repeating shifts to a new message and then drawls and gets screwed up. And with the ambient music, the camera's training your movement, that realization, it's like, oh, I'm in the middle of a horror movie, ain't I?
The classical music is unnerving.
I want to...
Oh, yeah.
I want to roll it back just a little bit because you jumped ahead of a couple of my notes. So, as we mentioned, we get Archer appearing on a monitor, and he's the one who tells us that Geth are loose in the facility. But we also get to follow Archer's logs throughout the building, or throughout the entire mission, really. And his first log states that the elusive man had doubts, but Archer has found success in his experiments. Also, when we try to retract the dish, the VI interrupts and clearly says, "Make it stop."
The subtitles, though, always just read unintelligible.
Well, right, because they don't want you... They want you as the player to not know that there's anything more to it than screeching and crying. But yeah, as soon as you do this mission once, you can hear that very clearly in it. And I mean, I would say, even if you aren't super familiar with it, you could probably decipher it. But yeah, the subtitles say unintelligible, but later the same noises say what he's saying because we find out about it being David and stuff. Like they in the beginning want you to just think it's an aggressive AI, and it's another case of the Geth getting out of hand or an AI getting out of hand, or VI rather. And we have to shut it down because Shepard's done this song and dance before. And so this mission is designed to make you fall into that and not think more of it, at least initially.
John, do you know why I wrote Archer is on some bullshit?
Archer's on some bullshit.
It's in the same paragraph as clearly said, "Make it stop." So it must have happened immediately after that, and I don't know why. He must have said something that was like, that sounds fake.
I don't know exactly. We took different notes. So we took a lot of the same notes, but that one I don't remember.
I don't remember what it was that prompted me to write that, but he must have said something that sounded really fake to me because I clearly have Archer is on some bullshit.
Probably. I like the name of Hermes Station. I'm going to bring up what they chose to name things a bunch in this because Hermes Station is their communications hub. That's why you have to destroy the satellite dish. And like they named things very, very well in this.
Yeah. And the structure of this mission is set up in a way, at least Hermes Station is like a run of the mill, one and done. I've got to show up, blow the thing up, and then move on kind of a thing, which is a standard Shepard mission. And I like how very quickly it becomes not that as we progress through.
The mission, to a certain extent, mirrors the events that happened before the mission, which is that at first it seems very simple and you're in and out, and then oh god, no, it's so much worse.
Yes, that is an accurate read.
Sorry, I was distracted because we got a message on Instagram.
Yes, I already saw it, but we should move on through Hermes. So the combat here, we're fighting Geth. They have this kind of green hue to them because they're being infected by the what we know it currently is the rogue VI. So the combat is pretty run-of-the-mill. I never get tired of biotic charging Geth into pieces, and it's no different here for me, combat-wise at least.
I miss biotic charge so much.
I always played
amazing.
Infiltrator, so I just sniped them through a time-slowed scope, just one after the other. I love the Infiltrator. It's such a fun class to play, especially in 2. 3 kind of nerfs it a little bit, but 2, it was peak gold.
So I don't skip over anything. I believe this is the rest of Hermes Station is pretty straightforward onto the satellite dish. Yes.
Kind of. I have another note here. We get another log of Archer being very self-congratulatory. He says this is a great day for Cerberus and humankind. And just nothing good ever comes of saying shit like that.
No.
No.
We also get a message from him saying that he tried to send an emergency message to Cerberus, only to find out that all comms are jammed.
Mm-hmm. That's after we get on the show.
Right, and he asks, how can it do that? Which prompted me to ask MJ, then how the hell did we find out about this? But obviously, when the base stopped reporting in, the Elusive Man's like, oh, right, they're all dead now. Because how many times did we see in one Cerberus projects go off the rails and everyone die?
Yep. I have to say, when we're on the tram, the surroundings are just beautiful.
Yes, I would agree. Also, it's funny you guys bring up Cerberus. Like, there's an assumption that at this point in the story, having completed the suicide mission, that we're still working for Cerberus. We're just not listening to the Elusive Man, which is, like, complicated, right? Like, it's clear that's a meta limitation of the DLC, and that there's an expectation that you would do it before the suicide mission, because we'll get to it, like, when you complete it finally at the end. They say something that makes me go, oh, this is out of time with what we've actually accomplished, it feels like. But anyway.
I have a note about that later.
Yeah, yeah, same. So we're getting these audio logs from Archer, and yeah, I can smell the bullshit as well. Like, once he said that, I was like, oh, okay, white supremacy much? Are we, like, the one true? I mean, which there's a lot of that baked into some of Cerberus anyway. But, like, nothing ever good comes of a line like that, and it made me nothing but worry. And, now we're going to go on to walk around on a giant satellite. This can't go wrong.
I also want to call attention real quick. John R.A. mentioned Archer saying, how can it do that? Knowing what we know, that it's David in the network, that it's his brother, he uses a lot of really distancing language. Like, to him, his brother's gone. Like, his brother is not even a factor.
Yeah, and you have to wonder, like, why he's at that point, right? Like, it could just be a matter of fact, like, it's trying to kill him, and so he has to distance himself to try and survive. But also, it makes you wonder, has he always felt that way about his brother? Like, it's clear in the flashbacks we'll get a little later that there is some love there, it sounds like, in his voice at least, but it does really sound like that, now looking back on it, that Archer doesn't care about his brother at all, and maybe never did.
I kept a tally of the number of times that Gavin Archer dehumanizes his brother throughout this mission. Counting the how can it do that in the audio log, there are no fewer than 5 times where he uses some kind of horrible dehumanizing language when directly referring to his brother, including calling him a virus with a face, an abomination, and his mind is so alien as to just be an actual literal alien.
Likely with Archer, it's the latter, not the former of what I said, but who the hell knows?
So then we have to take out this satellite, right? And we do that by blowing up its support constructs. And after we blow those things up, the satellite just completely crashes, and Shepard's like surprised about it. I'm like, why are you surprised?
I mean, Shepard isn't really surprised. At least male Shep just goes, "You gotta be kidding me."
But like, why didn't you expect this to happen?
The thing that strikes me most about this scene is when a piece of the satellite falls from way up high, right behind Shepard, the immediate response is to pull out your gun and turn and point your gun at the giant piece of machinery that almost crushed you, which I get adrenaline's running high, you're a soldier, your immediate response is to, point your gun at the potential threat, but also, my dude, really?
This whole section also on a meta level shows the limits of the Xbox 360 versus and the time of this game, because you look up, then it cuts to an FMV of an explosion, which is clearly outside the gameplay graphics, and then cuts back to Shepard jumping for cover, and it just feels so disjointed, like it feels very old school video gamey. And it's a fairly superficial complaint, but it definitely jumps out at me as like, oh yeah, this thing didn't hold up. Like the reason the majority of Mass Effect 1 and 2 holds up is because it's mostly in-game graphic cutscenes, or the FMV cutscenes are separate, right? They don't try and insert them mid-mission, but here it just seemed kind of ugly and obvious. But yeah, we survived not getting crushed by satellites.
Yeah,
So
and then
us.
Archer appears, and when we ask him what's going on, he goes, "Man's reach exceeding his grasp." Like some self-important piece of shit.
Gavin Archer is the single most, British colonialist piece of trash you encounter in these games. I hate him so much.
He's pretty terrible.
He is pretty terrible.
Sorry, no, go ahead, Matt.
I was just going to say, he is pretty terrible, and, it's on another level, even beyond the Elusive Man, although I suppose the Elusive Man is just as bad because he was funding it. But, there's something about this personal connection that Archer has to the experiment that makes it way worse in my mind, at least.
So you ask Gavin at one point, well, what would happen if, we hadn't blown up this satellite dish? And he says, technological apocalypse. We had no way of knowing that it would have gotten this bad. And it's like, dude, you're a shitty scientist if you couldn't even be bothered to calculate probability vectors for interfacing a human mind, a VI, and then the Geth hive. You absolute piece of garbage, shitty scientist motherfucker. I hate you.
It is interesting when you get the details, quote unquote, from Archer here. If you have Legion with you, which I did, after the conversation, he looks at Legion, looks back at you and goes, "Is he going to be a problem?" Which, first of all, fuck you. But second of all, Shepard's like, if I know anyone who cannot be hacked by another AI, it's that Geth. He's special. And so, Shepard clearly understands Legion and cares for Legion, but again, this is only supporting your point, John. The way that Archer talks about Legion as if it's a thing, almost like it's an object, and maybe it shouldn't be here, only supports his additional shitty behavior and how he views machines, right?
Right. So John kind of jumped over a couple of things. We find out that Project Overlord is specifically an attempt to interface Geth VI with a human mind. And Archer says
Yeah.
the results have been less than satisfactory, which is both a huge understatement and a huge 180 from all the logs that we'd been listening to.
Yeah.
He also tells us that his brother David volunteered to serve as a test subject, but his mind couldn't handle it, and now he's acting like a virus, seizing all tech, which is why we had to destroy the satellite to prevent him from uploading his program off-world and spreading throughout the galaxy.
And that's, knowing what we know about David, that's absolute nonsense.
Right.
Because David Archer is like very much on the autistic spectrum and unable to really care for himself in any real way outside of his brother's care. He couldn't possibly give informed consent to be a part of this experiment.
Right.
Right. Well, and it goes beyond that because and it's strangely related to something I've done on a different part of the network. I was recently a guest on Men of Steel to talk about Superman the Animated Series. We talked a lot about Brainiac because we did one of those episodes. And Brainiac is an artificial intelligence, super intelligence that can beam itself off-world because it has those kind of plans. But David probably wanted help. David can't beam himself off-world. He's not a machine. This was a lie created by Archer because Archer didn't want word getting out about their failure. And all David is doing around every corner is trying to get the word out that he's suffering or to make it end or to escape somehow. But like, it's not like he could digitize his consciousness, not to what we know anyway. So it kind of just feels like it's a through line of lies everywhere because we're not dealing with Brainiac from Superman. We're dealing with a scared, tortured individual who just wants help.
Yes, very much so. Anyway, so while we're talking to Archer, I just want to point out that our squad mates are cleaning up the bodies.
Yeah, watching Legion drag a body, it's like, it gives me kind of Geth flashbacks a little bit. Yeah. Like, if I didn't know who Legion was, I would be like, what are you doing?
I had Garrison Tally just, like, packing up bodies and supervising and putting them in little coffins, and I'm like, guys, what are you doing?
Yeah, I had Jack and Legion doing it, and I was like, this just looks weird.
It also feels out of character for Jack to have such reverence for the dead that she's trying to... I guess late game Jack, maybe. Mass Effect 3 Jack, definitely, but that feels out of character.
I mean, I would agree if MJ had brought her Jack, but since Jack and I are in a relationship...
She's a softer Jack.
And I feel like she's softer. Also, she'd know that I'd want this, and so she would do it for me. I feel like
that's fair,
kind of a thing. So it didn't break my logic that much, other than it just seemed odd. It was mostly the image of Legion dragging a human body that I was like, this. It's a good thing I know you.
I also want to bring up a note that I made. I had my shepherd say, you should have taken better precautions, and Dr. Archer says, we couldn't be expected to account for every outcome. To which I shouted at John, isn't that their job?
Yeah.
Like, isn't that literally your job?
Yeah, your job as a scientist before doing an experiment is to calculate the probability of certain outcomes.
But also, isn't this literally the worst possible outcome that one could easily imagine?
Mm-hmm.
Like, isn't this just the go-to, like, yes, this is the worst case scenario. Let's, like, calculate the likeliness of this.
And when we get to Prometheus Station, we'll see, that we'll learn a little bit more about the calculations of these probabilities. Yeah,
it's clear that these are the stupidest smart people that I have ever met. And it's funny, like I chose the same dialogue option because of course I did, and I felt the same way. I was just like, because it's also human nature to imagine extremes, right? Like we have trouble filling in the smaller details sometimes, but imagining the absolute worst, especially for an anxious person, which I know everyone on this call is to some degree or another, like that's easy to imagine. Like everything goes wrong and we all die. Like, that's not a hard leap to make when dealing with things like this. And it just feels like it's a cop out that he did expect it. He just didn't care. He wanted his results, which is probably more the truth.
We also get a brief shot of a picture frame of the Archer brothers together. Don't fucking manipulate me. Don't fucking make me believe that you care about your brother. I know you don't.
They make brief overtures at more than one juncture in this to make you think that Gavin Archer actually loves his brother, but we all know that he can't possibly, because if he loved his brother, he wouldn't have done the things that he did to his brother.
Well, right. I think part of it is the meta, right? Like, at this point, they want Shepard to believe it's just a rogue VI. And then even after finding out that it's David, that David wanted this to some degree, because they want to free the player in that moment of early judgment. They want the full impact to hit when we see what we see at the very end of this mission, which I won't.
Honestly, I don't trust Archer no matter what. Even like if I didn't know what I already knew, I wouldn't trust him, because we have another conversation where he says, David volunteered for what should have been safe, but with VI, there is no such thing as safe. So I told him, then you shouldn't have attempted it. And Dr. Archer says, and what if you never attempted to find the Reapers? My dude, that is not the same thing!
Right. I mean, that's the classic straw man argument, right? Like, the thing you did, it's like the thing I did.
No, super.
This is a huge false equivalence, and it just goes to show that Gavin Archer is a terrible scientist with no grasp of logic or anything, which could just be writing, but, outside of that, he's just a bad scientist.
And the whole reason that this started is because Archer wanted to turn the Geth's religious impulse into a weapon. Like, their need for connection. Their need to, like, have that network.
He wants to enslave the Geth, and it's disgusting.
It is. It's very disgusting.
It is, but that's also been the Elusive Man's goal for a while. He's not been very discreet about that, wanting to use the technology around him, even if it's done harm for his
Well, I hate him too. That's not news.
Yeah, the Elusive Man also sucks.
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah.
So, I did Prometheus first.
And I did Vulcan first, but we can talk about Prometheus first. That's fine. I mean, they're fairly separated from each other.
So Prometheus is a crashed Geth ship, and what we have to do is we have to go to each of these places and lift the lockdown on Atlas Station, which is where David is located.
Yeah, Dr. Arthur is able to release it on Hermes Station, but the overrides for the remote stations were destroyed, and so we have to do it manually, and so we have to go to both.
So I wanted to say something about the name of Prometheus Station, because I'm going to bring this up for each station, at least very briefly. So the myth of Prometheus, as I'm sure you both know, is, right, Prometheus brings fire to human beings, right, gives us this ability for warmth and cooking and stuff. And then his punishment is to be chained to a mountain and then have his liver eaten out each day by a vulture or an eagle or whatever, right? And then this is a crashed Geth ship that has brought this technology to Project Overlord, and every single day they go in there and they strip more Geth out and they use them for their experiments. And it's just a very good use of this name to, like, it's a literal representation of what they're doing to this ship. The Project Overlord team is doing, going into the Geth ship that they have codenamed Prometheus and taking out, Geth that are not active and using them in this experiment.
Right.
Yeah, it's gross on many levels, and so they named it appropriately. The creators of this DLC did a good job.
You want to know what I know about Prometheus?
What do you know about Prometheus?
Sagittarius, a centaur philosopher, traded places with Prometheus because he felt that Prometheus did the right thing, and the gods were so moved by his sacrifice that they embodied him in the stars.
That's actually really nice. Sagittarius is also correct, and also the Greek gods suck. They're all terrible people. I'm
mean, we
looking
know
at you,
that. I mean,
everyone who's not Hades.
the story of Zeus in the Disney movie is much nicer than what Zeus actually did that led to Hercules existing. So let's not go there.
Anyway, so Prometheus.
So what's really interesting about this Overlord mission is that the reason it's coupled with the Fireworker DLC is because it's obviously designed to get you using the Hammerhead. The Hammerhead is the new vehicle in the second game. It was all included in the DLC. And the go-betweens for this mission is using it and utilizing it effectively, which, let me tell you, on a mouse and keyboard, not really great. The shift key is to jump, the space bar is to go fast, and then the WASD is to move, and it is definitely much trickier than using a controller. I had forgotten I could jump until I got to a place where I clearly needed to jump and was like, oh, there must be a button for it. Let me look up the controls.
Oh, dear.
So yeah, but that said, once I got the hang of it, I was fine. What's interesting about Prometheus Station is that the setup out front is the Geth defenses are on somehow. We're assuming, I guess, David turned them on.
Obviously.
Yeah.
And so you have a giant super cannon firing at you while there are shield generators protecting themselves and the giant cannon. And you have to train the cannon to blow up those shields to then blow up the shield generator to then take out the cannon. And I made an astonishing discovery here that I've never done in my history of playing this section of this DLC. After you blow up the shield generators and the gun is exposed, if you go almost right under the gun and shoot up, it can't hit you. I've never done that before. I've always just dodged it and kept shooting at it while dodging. But if you get real close, it's a long-range weapon. It cannot hit you. I was like, oh. Yeah, I was like, oh, this is brilliant. Why have I never done this the other 18 times I played this?
I'd like to talk about my experience with the Hammerhead, if that's okay.
Sure, please.
So, first of all, I wrote down in my notes, it's Hammerhead time.
I wrote the same thing.
I don't love the Hammerhead. I love that I can go fast. I love Noom. Yeah. Gotta go fast. That was really cool. But it's very lightly armored. It's not built for fighting, really. And the missile tracking isn't great. So it was what it was. But I did really enjoy the Prometheus cannon work because it was really satisfying to just like zip around and have the cannon do all my work for me.
Yeah, because you can shoot the shields yourself, but your missiles don't do all that much against them. My favorite part of the Hammerhead in this entire mission is when you're driving around and its VI will say, geographic sensors indicate a pleasing view. Organics may wish to take note.
Yeah, I think my least favorite thing about the Hammerhead is the inclusion of an AI or VI rather that like is unnecessary.
There's a point where the VI chimes in to talk to you and you're not even in the Hammerhead. What are you doing?
It's linked into your comms in the same way that Edie can be.
I didn't ask for
do
this.
Not want.
I disconnected that pairing.
Yeah. I agree to a point with the Hammerhead. I think nothing will ever be as bad as the Mako, so therefore I inherently will always like the Hammerhead because it's just better. But I would agree that the combat they designed for the Hammerhead to engage in is not ideal because it's the same kind of combat you would have done in the Mako, but the Mako was more heavily armored, had a machine gun and rockets. This, you just have missiles that home in, a limitless supply also, because magic. And yeah, it takes damage very quickly. I mean, if you get behind figure quotes cover, you magically stop being on fire somehow. I think it's more gamified than it is useful in the world it exists in.
Yo, imagine trying to fight a Thresher Maw in the Hammerhead, though.
No thanks.
Honestly, I feel like it'd be really good because the maneuverability and the hover part of the hammerhead, I think would make it very useful for fighting against because you can constantly circle around it, orienting your cannon towards it, something that you really couldn't do in the Mako with its very limited ability to turn. I mean, if that Thresher Maw comes up right from underneath you, you're gonna die, but that was the same in the Mako too. Pretty much. I feel like you have an advantage in the hammerhead that you don't have in the Mako.
Also, you speak kindly by saying limited availability to turn. Like, the Mako didn't turn. It flopped around like a dead fish, and you hoped to go in the right direction when you were done flipping.
I have gotten very adept at piloting the Mako. I have no problems with it at all.
That makes you a good game player, not a good vehicle. Not the same thing.
Right, so
anyway.
Once you get into the crashed Geth ship, the second you walk in, there is a Geth and an egg.
Yep. There is a...
And I look at that and go, hi, boss battle. I'll see you later.
I looked at that and said, can I offer you an egg in this trying time?
I have some things to say about the Geth Prime, but I will do that when we get to that at the end of Prometheus Station.
We have a log where someone says hanging around these dormant machines is creepy. Yes, it is.
They say it's like death staring at you from the shadows, which is deeply poetic and also very on point.
It's very terrifying.
Yes.
We also find out if these Geth wake up, there's a 98% chance we'll be dead in 2 minutes.
So this is what I mentioned earlier. They ran this simulation where Archer said he couldn't have been expected to, figure out the worst case scenario. Someone did it, and he ignored it.
Yep. Also, right after you get that audio log in the next room, they're just Geth along the walls and in a center pod. In a very Jack way. When I first walked into that room, Jack just shot one.
What a mood.
Just was like, oh god. And it was just like it's funny because you walk in, you get the audio log, and then Jack just went die, and it shot it, and I just was like, chill, we're
Maybe
good.
It's not active
and
yet.
then I walked around, but that's fine because then I walked around shooting them all, just in case. You can never be too sure.
So we find out that this dude named Lanigan wore spare Geth parts for Halloween. So first of all, fuck Lanigan. Fuck that guy.
We can all agree that Lanigan is actually... Archer isn't as bad as Lanigan, because Lanigan wore a Geth skin suit.
Yes.
Like he's Ed fucking Gaines.
But I have to say, it is good to know that there's still Halloween in space.
Yes, that was fun to learn, but fuck that guy.
Lanigan.
That's
Lanigan's
terrible.
The worst.
Lanigan gets mentioned more than once in these audio logs for being a shit.
Yeah, pretty much.
So throughout the whole station, there's an eerie silence punctuated by David's cry for help. And then we hit a floor puzzle, and that's when the Hammerhead VI helpfully informs me that I need to get to the other side of the room. I knew that. Why are you talking to me? You're outside.
It was lonely. It was waiting for you. Why won't you play with me, David?
Oh, no. Don't do that.
Yeah, and it's funny, too. Going through the whole station, I thought to myself, I remember fighting Geth in here. Because, again, it wouldn't be an episode if I didn't misremember something. And then when you get across the platform, activate the manual switch, the Geth start to power up, and Shepard goes, of course, I knew this was too easy. And it's like, Shepard, my dude, you should have known that was going to happen. I'm the player and I forgot, but this is Shepard 101. You do a thing and then there's repercussions. Welcome to being
repercussions.
I wish I could say that was on purpose.
Anyway, once we approve of unlocking Atlas, David Reel don't like that. So now we have to fight through Geth to get out.
Yeah, and the screeches that David does and the moments where he'll pop up on monitors and stuff, even though I've played this so many times, there's still a bit of a jump scare to it that I actually don't mind. I don't love jump scares, but I like what this mission does with audio and visual to kind of jar you because it's meant to be jarring.
There are a lot of times when you accomplish a part of your mission or you shoot Geth, especially in the augmented reality experience later, that David screams. And I don't know if that's out of frustration over his Geth being destroyed or if he's feeling some kind of pain, because he is deeply linked into the Geth neural network. And while the Geth don't feel pain, he is a human mind. So, which brings me to a point of curiosity. I wonder if David feels all the times that you two shot him in the eyeballs. And I wonder if he's a little mad about that.
I think that perhaps I was doing him a service because he is overloaded by stimuli. So I'm just removing the stimuli.
By poking him in the eye with a bullet.
Poking, exploding, tomato.
I'm sure it's fine.
So we have to escape the facility, and so every turn, Geth. More combat, more... my favorite thing to do now is I play basketball with enemies. What I mean by that is I'll use Slam, and then as soon as Slam comes off cooldown, I'll charge in and they go flying.
Nice.
It's a lot of bouncing.
I like
and dribbling.
Slam a lot, but Slam was not largely helpful to me here.
Because they all have shields and it doesn't work. So the Geth Prime at the entrance, and this is true for all Geth Prime, has an M76 Revenant. Where are these Geth getting all of these very human weapons? We know that the Geth have their own, but like the Geth rocket troopers all have M77 missile launchers. They're the only Geth in the game to carry around heavy weapons. And this dude's got a Revenant. Like, use Geth weapons maybe.
Well, we have to assume that the humans surrendered their weapons here, right? Like, none of them had weapons on their side, but there were weapons on the base. And so my guess is the Geth activated and took the weapons. Maybe. Just a thought, though. This battle was a pain in the ass, but not impossible. I love being justified in seeing a boss battle before it happens and then coming around the corner going, oh, hi, Geth Prime. I knew we were going to fight. Nice to see you. I stayed on the second floor, so he kept sending wave after wave of drones after me, the little, like, orbs, which was a minor inconvenience.
I kept having a problem where I would go to Overload, and for some reason, even though they were like firmly in my sights, the Overload would miss.
You kept getting
weird.
blocked by the short wall underneath the broken windows.
Which makes no sense.
It makes no sense at all, but that is what was unfortunately happening game mechanics wise.
My favorite thing about this battle is that because I stayed on the second floor after everything else was dead, I was standing at like the corner area on the second floor where you come around, and like so the Geth Prime was literally just standing under me, staring up at me as I shot him in the face because he couldn't get to me and he wouldn't go up the ramp apparently.
Weird.
So I just stood above him shooting him.
Oh, so the Geth get a cool update from Mass Effect 1 to Mass Effect 2 that I made note of and I wanted to mention before I forget. They have blood now. They bleed white,
apparently.
and it's a little creepy, honestly.
It's meant to be distressing, which is kind of the whole point.
Okay, so after that we go to Vulcan Station, where we have to maneuver the Hammerhead over some lava rivers and make our way to a small location to initiate the releasing of the lockdown.
Yeah, let me just say that this platforming was trying enough with a controller. Using keyboard and mouse to try and manipulate my camera, the speed boost, and the jump to get through the lava mazes. Like, I didn't die, surprisingly, but I almost did several times where I would, like, boost jump, hit the wall, and, like, almost fall in, but would hover long enough on the wall that I could reset my jump and then get to safety. I hated this platforming area. I get why the concept was cool. I do not feel like it's aged well, and I did not.
It gave me a lot of anxiety, and I definitely fell into the lava.
So before we get into the Vulcan mission, I'm just going to mention, of course, Vulcan is like the Greek god of like volcanoes and like the forge and stuff. So the fact that their geothermal plant is named Vulcan is very poignant, and that's all I have to say about that because there's no metaphors here.
Also, they live long and prosper. Right?
Very nice. I feel like your Hammerhead controls are like backwards. Like space should be jump and shift should be go fast.
that's my thought too, and I can probably change them, and I probably will before we do Firewalker. But like, yeah, no, that was my thought too. Is like spacebar is usually the jump button for literally every PC game. So why here is it go fast? Yeah, doesn't make.
So I feel like Vulcan wasn't particularly interesting. We do have that platformer that you mentioned. We have a spot where we have to get out of the hammerhead and activate some vents so we can progress through. At the very end, we're fighting mechs, we're fighting droids, and yeah, that's it. Then there is a moment where we can take a renegade action.
Yes,
I did
which I
too.
because they're robots. Like, these are clearly just robots.
These are just mechs, and also I don't need him like running at me when I'm not paying attention.
No, but
so what I love about this part of the mission is as a and I've talked about this many times, as a Vanguard, there's nothing more satisfying because they're so much weaker than charging these stupid droids and watching them parts fly just everywhere. It's always satisfying. It's always great. There's a section of the combat where if you blow up one of the gaskets, you knock out a bunch of rocket launchers along a pipe that are shooting at you. I never end up doing that because I forget, and then I do it anyway after because it's satisfying to still see the thing happen. And then that final scene when you're talking to Archer and the robot is just like looking around. It's been released of control and it's just flopping around with no arms, just kind of running around. It's just very goofy.
The thing that
wacky.
struck me most about the scene is that you walk in and you see this robot shooting the lockdown controls, trying to break it. So you,
and then start kicking
So then
it.
your party immediately shoots it, and like you've got some of the best soldiers in the galaxy here. MJ's got like a trained sharpshooter, and like Tally, who's amazing with her shotgun, and all they managed to do is shoot its arms off, which could only have been deliberate. To leave this poor mech bereft and armless, and then at the end of it, you're just like, we're on our way, shoot.
Well, they had to disarm him.
I love you so much.
That one hurt.
I'm sorry, I had to
mostly 'cause I
channel
didn't
Magnus
get to it first.
Burnsides.
But that said, I think it mostly was written for that moment where Shepard, like a cool guy walking away from an explosion, shoots the head and says, "We're on our way." Which I don't know what happens if you don't do that, because I don't think I've ever.
It just walks away. I've not shot it before. It just you're just like, we're on our way, and then you just leave, and the robot's just there.
It's such a waste.
I just didn't feel the need to, like, it feels like a waste of a bullet. Like, it's an armless Loki mech. What's it gonna do? Bleed on me? Like, it's like the Black Knight fight. Like, what can he do at this point?
Once we're finished with Vulcan, it's finally on our way to Atlas, where we are hoping to find David and end this once and for all.
Right, Atlas Station, where David is literally holding up the sky of his brother's ambitions.
Wow.
Yeah, no. Listen, they do very good work with metaphor here. Or I'm reading too much into it.
I think you're reading too much into that one.
I don't think so. I think the point of Atlas is to hold up the heavens, and like he's supporting the entirety of the cosmos on his shoulders, and that's what David is doing, and just like with Atlas, it is destroying him.
As we're going through Atlas Station, we find out that David is autistic, and he is a math savant specifically. Many of the scenes that we see of David are him reciting the square roots of numbers and doing them in a particular sequence. By the 10th, right? The 10th decimal?
He goes, the square root of 906.01 is 30.1. The square root of 912.02 is 30... I don't know the exact math, but yeah, he does it by like very incrementally, and it's an interesting way of stimming that I've never seen before.
Mm-hmm. So, additional content warning here. We are getting into some very ableist stereotypes in language, and we're going to try and handle this as delicately as possible. But yeah, this whole thing just read to me as a really bad ableist stereotype of autistic people.
Yeah, it it feels like they took the term special needs and just kind of did the generic kind of like, I mean, there could be some research behind it, but it does feel very ableist. It does feel very low hanging fruit a little bit, and that's a bit of a bummer. I mean, I know the idea is to make Dr. Archer look really cruel, but I mean, you're meant to walk away from this whole mission feeling gross.
And hey, they
right?
succeeded. I do.
And they do. Right. And so I don't know if I want to say it was handled poorly per se. I don't know that I can speak to that.
I want to say that it was handled poorly because I think it's really insulting to people who are autistic to boil them down to this kind of stereotype.
Well, right. What I'm saying, I'm not saying it was done. I'm not saying I don't want to say it's done poorly. I want to say that I am not experienced enough to question the validity of this beyond how uncomfortable it makes me feel. As I am not autistic, I don't closely know anyone currently who are autistic, and so I don't want to make assumptions with something I am inexperienced with. That said, it does all feel gross, and it does all feel like it was mismanaged and handled poorly.
What's the name of the guy who voices Carlos in Night Vale? Dylan Marin.
Dylan Marin voices Carlos.
Dylan Marin.
Yes.
So Dylan Marin did a video series, and I highly recommend this to both our listeners and to both of you because I think you'll find it very interesting. He did this video series where he gave people who are marginalized the opportunity to speak out against stereotypes that are used against them. And he actually fucked up the first time he did autism. And there was a huge backlash. And the autistic community rose up and said to him, like, hey, all of the stereotypes, you fell into them. Like, you fucked up so bad. And his response to that was to say, oh shit, I did fuck up. And to actually, like, try again and do better. And the second video is actually very good. And I do recommend it because he does have a very meaningful, insightful conversation with a group of people. Not just, like, one autistic person who's supposed to act as a monolith, but, like, a group of autistic people who talk about, like, their personal experiences, how varied it is, how, like, you can't boil down to these kinds of stereotypes.
Okay, awesome. Yeah, I'll definitely check that out.
I will find a link and I will share it on our social medias.
Sounds good.
More notes. We find out that Dr. Archer plugged David directly in to the Geth neural network because he was afraid of being shut down, with absolutely no regard for David's safety.
None. And we at this point don't know what that means that he plugged him in directly, other than some kind of physical connection to it.
In one of the audio logs, someone asks if the interface is safe, and Archer responds, I see no harm in finding out. So you don't actually know if what you're plugging your brother into is going to be safe, and you're just like, let's find out.
Yeah. We get an elevator puzzle, which it helped me a lot to have John sitting next to me because I'm looking at this, I'm like, oh, I have to, like, figure out numbers and things.
Yeah, for me anyway, it didn't seem particularly complicated. Maybe because I just remembered
annoying.
I've done the puzzle.
It was. You had to.
Sorry, you finish.
I was just gonna say, all you had to do is hit the elevator button until it went to the number 6. Go to the computer, it drops down to 5. Hit it again, it goes.
See,
up to
I did
7.
it differently.
We did it a slightly different way, but I've done all of the puzzles in Mass Effect so many times that it's not even a matter of figuring them out anymore. It's just like when you know the answer to a riddle. You don't. It's just you know it now. It's not a matter of figuring it out again. It's just there in your head.
Yeah. I don't know that I necessarily remembered it. I just pieced it together pretty quickly. I mean, I guess somewhere in the back of my brain, but I didn't actively go while playing it. I remember this. I kind of fumbled my way through it, and I think mostly just got lucky.
Once we get onto the elevator, this is my actual literal nightmare. I hate elevators so much for this reason.
So, yes, and I have to tell you that this experience is very different for me now. So I used to never give elevators a second thought for many, many years. And then last February, I got stuck in an elevator for what felt like 4 hours. It was only about an hour, but like the door was a hair from completely closed. I could talk to someone through the door, but it wouldn't open, it wouldn't move. And I'm a claustrophobic person. So after I got out, I was hysterical crying. I was a mess. I had nightmares about it for weeks. And I eventually moved on from it. Like, I still don't love elevators, but I can ride in them. In my own building, I don't have a choice, so it tends to fall into the back of my brain. But when this happened, I gripped my desk. Like, it set me off because I've been there. Like, thankfully, the elevator I was in didn't drop. Like, it was just stuck. But like, this set me off in a way that it never did before because I had a personal experience that was absolutely terrifying.
I've been trapped in an elevator. I was trapped in the elevator in the Staten Island Mall. And that was very annoying because there were a whole bunch of cops, like, in the mall at that point, and none of them could do anything.
Yeah.
I've been trapped in the elevator of my old building back when I worked at the publishing house. And we had repairs going on in that elevator after we got stuck in it. And I was so nervous of it all the time. And the guys who worked there would go up in the elevator with me while construction was happening. And one took the time to tell me, like, hey, I know you're nervous, but let me tell you about how elevators work so that way you know that this isn't going to happen to you. And there's a fail-safe in every elevator where should anything happen, it locks and it will drop maybe a foot, maybe 3 feet at max, but it will never drop more than that, and it will lock into place. Right. So, like, you never have to worry about an elevator crashing the way we see in action movies or suspense or anything like that. That's just not going to happen. There are fail-safes that are there to keep that from happening. But still.
Yeah, still super triggering. So if you have any fear of elevators, and you haven't played this yet, I guess
please be careful.
Warning. Yeah.
Also, it's not like an enclosed elevator. It's just an
like
open
a platform in a shaft.
It's just an open platform. The platform goes from wall to wall, so there's no real place for you to fall over. But there's also nothing for you to hold on to.
It's true.
Yeah. I do appreciate, though, that when the elevator does finally lock in or hit the ground level, Shepard stumbles, but your partners, they're cool. They don't stumble. They don't fall over. And I know it's a meta thing, but like the fact that you program Shepard to stumble when that happens, but not the allies, just seems lazy.
Legion has those good robot legs.
It's true.
Right, exactly.
It's very true. Let's see. I have some more quotes from Dr. Archer. I'd be lying if I said no harm could come to David. And as John mentioned earlier, his autistic mind is as alien to me as an actual alien. This is the 22nd century and we still can't treat autistic humans like humans.
Nope.
It's horrible. It's absolutely terrible.
Yep. The problem with people of this century making stuff about the future is that the future will still be racist, transphobic, if those kinds of people don't think about that stuff, right? Like, it's sad that the limitations of the scope of the writer will always hinder the vision of the future, and it's a bummer.
We get to the VI server console. Shepard says, I wouldn't be surprised if this button summoned a Reaper.
Probably one of my favorite lines.
It's very good.
DLC. My favorite line has got to be, and this is turning the clock back a little bit, when you first see Dr. Archer realize that David can speak with the Geth. David makes this series of grunting clicks that is the Geth's own natural language, and then he turns to his brother and says, "The robot says hello."
Oh yeah, I do want to talk about that actually. The robot says hello.
Yeah, that actually comes after this. Once you're infected by the VI,
that
which
happens next.
Oh, that's right.
And so you press the button, things glitch out, and then Shepard's Omni tool gets infected, and what appears is out of our 90s virtual reality dreams. A grid falls over everything. My shepherd is wearing an orange visor, so it looked like my visor was corrupted, which was pretty neat. Because it's right in front of my eyes, then of course that's what I would be seeing. You stumble out of the room and the door closes behind you, locking in your companions. I also want to mention how creepy it was leading up to this moment, like doors opening and closing on their own. At one point, the door doohickey, I don't know what to call it, the green square, the lock mechanism that's like, a VI kind of interface, at one point like glitches out and then slides along the wall to another door and then opens. Like all of that stuff is really affecting and really creepy. And then this happens. And like the first time I played it, I remember going, oh God, what's happening? Am I going to die? What's going on?
They mention that I think it's in Prometheus Station, that the VI is closing some doors and leaving some open almost as if it's hurting us.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So this virtual reality experience is to show us the past, or to show us the truth of what happened. And the squad gets locked up, and I kind of wish I had Garrus at this point, because I think it'd be interesting to see like how that scene plays out if my boyfriend's with me. But instead I get Legion, who is most urgently at the door, being like, oh no, this is bad.
Yeah, no, for me it was Jack being most urgent, and I don't know why.
Because she's your girlfriend?
I mean, she is, but programmatically, I don't know that that's the reason why. But it looked good.
David's voice is becoming more clear and more human, and he is clearly in pain.
Yeah, saying, please make it stop, over and over again.
We get to see... I'm sorry.
I was just going to say, and then as we start to move forward, we fight some Geth that when we kill them, they like disappear like an old arcade game.
They just dissolve into fragments.
Like the only thing missing is like a score showing up after they disappear.
We get to see David sitting at his brother's feet reciting square roots. We see that David learns how to mimic the Geth language, and as John mentioned, David translates for one of the Geth and says the robot says hello. And that is the moment that Dr. Archer decides, oh, I'm going to use this to take advantage and destroy the Geth. Not, like, I don't know, there's just something so brutal and cruel about it that this defenseless creature said hello, your brother translated for you, and you don't go to, oh, hey, maybe they can be communicated with, maybe peace can be an option.
Yeah.
You just go straight to like, great, I'm going to use this to destroy them.
Yeah, it shows that Dr. Archer cares very little about the actual code of ethics or science. This idea that like, oh, this, like his reaction should have been, oh, this is a grand discovery. I can now communicate with them. Isn't this amazing? I'm getting to talk with a race of beings that I could not talk to before. But no, instead his thought was, oh, I can manipulate my brother and find a way to destroy the Geth just because my brother can communicate with them. And it's really sad on multiple levels.
The entire sequence of events that we witness, Archer is using his brother as a tool. And I think the reason why this went all so wrong is because David was overstimulated. When he gets plugged into the Geth neural network, there are several moments leading up to this where David mentions that things are too loud. And like when Archer raises his voice to David slightly, David starts to panic and he freaks out. And it's very clear that he can't handle too much stimulation. So when you plug him into an entire Geth network, like we know that there are thousands of Geth minds in a network.
Our clearest indication of David being so easily overstimulated comes when Archer asks David to play back his notes from last Thursday. And, David does this, like he uses his brother as a recording device, right, which is creepy and gross. But then he asks his brother, like, how are you feeling today? And David says a square root, and then he says earplugs would be nice because it's too loud. And this goes to what like David has been shouting this whole time, which we won't find out until the final battle, so I'll leave that until we get there.
Well, we're there now, pretty much.
Yeah, the one other thing I'll say is when we see these series of digital flashbacks, the really strange thing is like, well, not strange, the classic depiction of an abuser finding kind moments and considering that relationship is like after David says the earplugs would be nice, like Archer puts his hand on his shoulder and seems to console him, and like it's showing a tender moment that in Archer's mind is like, look, I can be kind, like I took care of my brother, like I'm not always great, but I'm taking care of him. And it's a classic kind of cycle you see.
Yeah, it's very manipulative.
And then like the final digital flashback is when he was plugged into the machine. We see him like kind of laid out and like the scientists there, and then David starting to freak out, which then cuts into reality as you're now fighting David and trying to shut him down, essentially.
So when you get into this room, you actually see kind of an orb, and you can actually see David's silhouette through the orb. And I never noticed that before. This was the first time that I realized it.
I'd never noticed it either. Even when I was doing this mission for the book, it was something that was completely lost on me.
So
yeah, I didn't notice it till this time as well.
This was fairly easy. It was kind of over super quick for me. You just have to shoot these orbs and keep David from uploading his program. Because even though, like, by now I'm very clear that David's not at fault here, he's a victim, uploading his program is not the safest thing. It's not what's going to help him. And what I need is for him to, like, calm down for a second so I can help him.
Yeah, I think the one thing I didn't notice that I noticed this time around is when you're right before this room, when you're in the room where the little elevator is, there's a layout of the Normandy,
and then
when you go down, the automated voice says uploading to the Normandy, and it never occurred to me that he was trying to upload himself to the Normandy. Like now that the satellite wasn't an option, and all of that came together in this fight.
I didn't notice that.
I didn't notice that either.
Yeah.
I think that if he had succeeded in that, Edie would have been fine because Edie blocks Legion, who is well over 1,000 Geth programs from, communicating outwards. I think there would have been a bit of a struggle there, but I think Edie would have emerged, as the undefeated heavyweight champion of the galaxy.
Edie could have helped.
Edie could have,
yes, but also remember that Edie, when not expecting something or when not, like Edie, because she's an artificial intelligence, is fallible. And so, like, with everything that happens with the collectors kidnapping and taking over the ship, like, yes, I believe you that Edie probably could have done it, but also if David had jumped onto the ship without them expecting it, he might have been able to take control away before they knew what was going on. Either way, it's a bad scene because David's panicked. So David's not going to make smart decisions. He's not going to make rational decisions. He's just trying to escape. He's clawing at a door at this point. So the best choice here is to shut everything down and figure out what actually is going on here and help David, which is what ensues.
When we finally defeat the VI, so to speak, air quotes around VI, we see David, and it is the most horrifying image. It's this poor young man who is completely wired up. There are wires coming out of his mouth. Like, his wrist is covered in, like, screws and plugs. Like, he's completely exposed. There are things holding open his eyes.
He's been crucified.
It's awful.
It's awful. Every time they do the close-up of his face to show his eyes darting around, like, I gag because it's just my natural reaction to, like even the thought of having endless cords in my throat, like, I've had nightmares about that. It's such a gruesome sight, and immediately just makes me feel awful. It wrecks my heart. And, like, as his eyes are darting, like, he's tearing, and he's still saying, please make it stop. Because even though the VI is shut down, that's what he's been saying. And so he's still saying it.
That was actually what I was going to mention. The most heart-wrenching part of this for me was the fact that David is crying literally this entire scene. And we finally get a clear indication of what he's been saying this entire time, which is quiet, please make it stop.
Yeah.
So David Archer fucking runs in.
Gavin Archer.
Sorry, Gavin Archer. I keep calling him DA in my notes for Dr. Archer, so that's why I got confused. Gavin Archer runs in and he like tries to make excuses for what he's done, and he goes as far as to say, I won't apologize for radical ideas. Aren't you going to apologize for the torture you inflicted on your flesh and blood, on your kin?
He's not, because he even says, like, if my work can stop, like, save 1,000,000 mothers from mourning 1,000,000 sons, then, I'll rest easy at night.
He's so pretentious.
He's an absolute piece of garbage, and I hate him so much, and I wish you could kill him.
So, Archer wants to care for David. He doesn't want Shepard to take him away. Matt, what did you do?
I chose the Paragon option and said, hell no, I'm taking him with me, and I'm going to bring him to Grissom Academy where they can take care of him.
I also refused to let Archer take care of him. In that moment, Archer reveals that David's not a person to him. He says that David is too valuable for us to take away. So him saying, like, I should care for him, I'm his brother, that was bullshit.
He just wanted to keep him there, and so he tried to appeal to Shepard's kinder side and his care and warmth, and didn't work. Shepard saw
horribly
right through it.
Manipulative.
Gavin Archer is very much detached from the reality of what he's done and how far past the line he is. Because one of the things that he says is, what I've done to him is unethical. Yes, it is. If he dies, it's unforgivable. My dude, it's already unforgivable. Everything that you did here, there's no walking this back. Let me take care of him, please. It's like, no, absolutely not.
I also refused. I also used the Paragon trigger.
So did I, which allowed me to hit him in the face.
I love that the Paragon trigger is pistol whipping him.
Yep. Well, because it's Paragon in defense of David.
I know. I just love that, at least in this instance, you, me, Matt, and the game can all agree that the good guy option is hitting Gavin Archer.
Yep.
Yeah, and then you pretty much say that if the elusive man doesn't like it, he can fire me.
Before that, Gavin asks where we're going to take him, and like you said, we tell him where we're going to take him, to Grissom Academy. I wish that there was an option to not tell him, because you don't deserve to know where he's going.
No.
He should be completely safe from you. You should never know where he is.
I also wish that, and I had that thought while I was writing this chapter, because no, you don't get to know this. You don't get to have any contact with your brother ever again.
Absolutely not. And then, Matt, as you were saying, the elusive man can fire me if he doesn't like it. Well, it's a good thing that I already quit.
Yeah, like, this is the only point in the entire mission where I go, yes, the meta. The game thinks we've still not done the suicide mission. I mean, in theory, we're still working for Cerberus. We're using their tech, but, like, we're not, really. So, yeah, that was the only disjointed moment. But, like, then after all of that is resolved, it just closes in on David repeating the numbers as it fades out, and it's just so heartbreaking. This mission destroys me every time I do it. It's just so blatantly cruel, and like it shows the worst of humanity in Dr. Archer. And I think it's a good mission. I think it's an important mission. I think it could be handled better, but like, it's powerful, regardless of whether it's done right or not. I feel like it's definitely still powerful.
Yeah, I can see that. It's definitely moving. It's heartbreaking. And I'm glad that we were able to help someone.
This is one of those missions where I can see a lot of people playing it thinking, how could people ever possibly do that? There's no way this type of thing could happen in the real world. But it does. We've done experiments on like prisoners without informed consent. There's the Tuskegee experiments. There's the Joseph Mengele and his twin experiments. Japan's experiments in Unit 731 back during World War II. I could keep listing examples probably for the next few minutes of like times in which scientists have decided that ethics don't matter if I can get the results that we need/want.
Unnecessary, but I appreciate it.
I wasn't actually going to. I was just saying that I could. I was going to humble brag.
Do we have any other notes to go over?
No, I think that this is one of the most powerful missions in all of Mass Effect. I don't know that it's the best. I don't even know if it's done well per se, but it definitely takes me places emotionally that a lot of other missions don't.
Yeah, that's fair. Well, it feels weird going from this to Fandom Corner.
But we are a podcast, and at the end of the day, we want this to be for the enjoyment of all, even as we're exploring difficult topics.
It's my job to depress people. It's your job to entertain them.
Well, for your entertainment, I would like to bring you Reignite Bingo. So there's a meme that's been going around Facebook and the internet in general where people have been filling out bingo cards with stuff about themselves and like sharing it with friends to see if anybody like gets bingo with them for what's also similar. So I have created a bingo card for us called How Similar Are You to Reignite? We're going to post this in our social media so you guys can play along and share it with us. I'm just going to read out some things that are on the bingo card. Agonizing over a decision. Every mission's a date when you bring your love interests.
I said that today.
Scouring Etsy for Mass Effect swag. Fuck the elusive man.
We've said that in many episodes.
Caden is a sweet, sweet marshmallow boy.
I love that I've coined a thing. Even if not that many people have those shirts and are saying it, I'm just glad I coined a thing.
Let's see. Why won't anyone listen to me? So once we drop this episode, I'll drop this bingo card. Feel free to mark it up, send it back to us by Twitter, Facebook, Discord, Instagram, whatever. Just show us how similar you are to us and let us know if you get a bingo.
Please do.
I will send you a sticker if you get a bingo.
There you go. There you have
I can let you know right now that, yes, I have bingo.
You already have a sticker, though.
I'm
You're
sure that I have
disqualified.
several bingos.
You're disqualified from all contests.
Oh,
Sorry.
man.
You're married to the host.
I really wanted to win that cowl.
I'm sorry.
That's fine.
I can make you one.
I didn't expect to, but I wanted to.
Speaking of that, I was going to do this last, but I'll do it right now. The results of the Reignite giveaway. Originally, the winner was... I don't want to butcher his name, so I'm going to the Twitter.
Oh my god. Matt, can you hear it, that cat?
I could at moments, but I mean, the internet likes cats. I'm not that worried about it.
The original winner was James Gibson. Unfortunately, because of COVID-19, international shipping was completely shut down. So when I went to mail out the cowl to James, I was told that I couldn't send it to the UK. So we had to find a new winner who was in the US. And fortunately we did. We selected a new winner with James's permission. And that was Lauren, who is a friend of the podcast. So Lauren was a new winner. Lauren was really excited and got her cowl and shared a picture of it on social media. So we're really excited that she got that and she's able to enjoy it. And James is the most wonderful human in the world for letting us choose a new winner. I really appreciate it. And once we're able to do international shipping again, I will send you a treat. Thank you so much for being so kind.
Also, if you enjoyed the giveaway, if you would like to see us do more of that kind of stuff, please let us know. If you have suggestions on the kinds of giveaways you'd like us to try, like we're at the end of the day, we're here to please you, really. Let's be honest. But like, seriously, like it was fun to interact in that way, you know, grow the community, give you guys stuff. Like, you know, when I bring stickers to conventions, we don't charge for the stickers. We charge on the site if you're buying them because they're produced as you go. But like, if we have a stack of stickers, I want you guys to have them. We want to give you that stuff. And so in that spirit, we want to share any kind of merch that we create in the future to some degree or another. So if you have ideas for giveaways or just want us to do more, please let us know.
I'm going to look into making enamel pins, honestly. That's my next goal. Also, if you really had your heart set on an N7 cowl, you can purchase one from me. You can reach out to me on Twitter at iHoardLibraries or on Instagram at iHoardLibrarians, and I'd be happy to talk about it with you. And I try to like do a sliding scale of pricing. I try not to be a jerk. I know things are really difficult right now, so like if you super want one but you can't afford too high of a price, we'll talk about it. It'll be fine. We'll figure it out. But that being said, thank you so much for participating. If you participated, we really, really appreciate it, and hopefully more giveaways are coming. Also, I am hopefully going to be releasing some Reignite acrylic charms soon. I got those recently, and I'm going to be turning some into keychains and some into necklaces. So keep an eye out on our social media for that.
Also, like, stay safe and wash your hands. I just feel like this is an appropriate time to say that.
That's fine. Okay. We have some housekeeping. We got a Facebook recommendation. I'm going to read that as soon as I get it in front of me. Okay. From Rachel. Fun, entertaining, and makes me laugh. It also points out things I missed or looks at things in a new way. I'm spending my Easter weekend catching up. Thank you so much, Rachel.
Thank you, Rachel. We appreciate the Facebook review. If you are a Facebook user and you follow us on Facebook, a like is great and a subscribe is great, but anywhere you can rate and review really helps. It gets people to notice. When you write a review on Facebook, it shows up on your wall. People can see it as long as you have a public profile or at least share it with your friends. So we appreciate the kind words, because it's nice to know we're reaching folks. Ideally, that's why we started this, is to connect with the broader community, but also in an effort to continue to grow this community. Anything you can do like that kind of thing helps. So thank you, Rachel.
And then we got a message on Instagram. Do you want to do that one or do you want me to do it?
Yep, I got it right here. It's from Andre. Andre writes, just finished season 1 of your podcast, and I love you guys. Mass Effect is my favorite video game series, and I thoroughly enjoyed playing along with your podcast. Made some interesting and surprising choices along the way. Looking forward to starting ME2. Hope you guys staying healthy and safe. Reignite is my favorite podcast on the internet. I should go. Well done and well played, Andre. Thank you so much for your kind words. I know that you also sent us another message that we will respond to a little later, but the kind words are always really appreciated, and it goes for anyone else on the internet. If you want to interact, me and MJ check the messages on our Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, Discord server. So anywhere you want to reach out, please don't hesitate to message us directly. We would love to chat with you, or at least through the appropriate pages.
Yeah. Let's see. I did the conclusion of our giveaway already. So our next episode is actually going to be wrapping up all of the miscellaneous side missions. We're going to do Project Firewalker, any N7 missions, and just anything else that popped up in the universe, because they're all very short, and I feel like we can knock it out in just like one episode. No point in having 3 separate episodes for all of those.
No, definitely not. There's only one more meaty thing that we need to do that we have to devote a whole episode to within Mass Effect 2. We have some other surprises too. But we figure for the tinier side missions, the kind of fetch questy stuff, to put them all together. So
now is a really good time for John to talk about his stuff and do some self-promotion. Go for it.
Okay, so as I mentioned earlier, I have written and self-published 2 books. They are called Representations of Genocide in Cartoons and Representations of Genocide in Video Games. You can find both of those as paperback or ebook on Amazon. I'd recommend right now just buying it on ebook because Amazon's not really shipping anything. So just, get it on Kindle and enjoy it. You can find me personally on Twitter at Prof. John Strange and on Facebook at John Lestrange Historian. But even more exciting than all of that is by the time you listen to this episode, I will have started my very own podcast. It's called, I know,
Gasp.
right? Thank you for that, Matt.
You're welcome.
It's called Genostory. We agreed to do this. It's a podcast about genocide studies, and how genocide is represented in fictional media. It will be coming out on the 15th of every month, and you can listen to both me and MJ on her 12th podcast talking about this really cool and unfortunately relevant stuff. You can find Genostory on Twitter at GenostoryPod, spelled GENOSTORY pod, and on Facebook at facebook.com/GenostoryPod.
Okay.
Amazing. That's awesome. Once that's up and running, which it will be, because we're in the future, John, we'll have to have you on Fun and Games, which is the gaming podcast I do with Jeff. Because while we try and talk about all aspects of the industry and tropes and stuff, I think it'd be really interesting to talk about how you engage with games, knowing what you know in the study that you do, and just talking up the awareness of genocide storytelling in gaming to the broader gaming community.
It's impossible to just enjoy video games anymore. I can't just play them and not notice things that are way too real.
One day I'll be invited to be on Fun and Games.
You were on Fun and Games.
No, I wasn't. No.
Oh, no. We talked about video games on Screen Snark at one point.
Well, I was on Screen Snark. That was it. With Jeff.
Yes.
That's why you're confused, because Jeff was there.
That's true. Because we also recorded our one shot that
Yes.
day. Look, we'll have you on at some point. You can also ask. I don't always remember. Look, I've got 1,000 podcasts. I have too much to do.
It's true. Between
I
the two
think
of
I'm
you.
leading Matt now, because with Genostory, that would have us matched, but we're also doing Alternamorphs with the Minds at Your Crew. So I think I'm ahead of Matt. Oh, no, wait.
I have 5 podcasts because I'm audio engineering,
Damn it.
Creative Quarantine. I'm not a host on that one, but it's still one of my podcasts. So
I thought I had him.
close, but no
This
cigar.
is a weird contest to have, because I've seen the amount of time that you put into recording these things and then editing them and then getting all the content out, and you don't have time for more podcasts.
Nope, I don't. But here we are.
I mean, I was talking to MJ,
Anyway.
but you probably don't have it either.
Anyway,
No.
if you like what you heard here, you can follow us on social media. We're at ReignitePod on Twitter, Tumblr, and Instagram, facebook.com/reignitepod, or you can send us an email at reignitepod@gmail.com. Don't forget to rate, review, and subscribe on your favorite podcatcher. It helps us get seen so other people can find us.
We're also members of the Certain Point of View network. Visit certainpov.com to hear more nerdy podcasts, each with a unique point of view. You can also find a permanent invite link to our Discord server on the website. Please join in the conversation there. While I know we often say and direct you to all sorts of other ways to contact us, the ideal way is through Discord. We want to foster a community there. We have a ton of great folks already there chatting. So if you do nothing else, but don't do nothing else. But if you do nothing else, join our Discord.
We also do some other stuff. I co-host a podcast called The Circle of Friendship, which is about the Circle of Magic books by Tamara Pierce, where we discuss friendship, magic, and, most importantly, Briar Moss. I also do a podcast called The Rob Thomas No Not That One Robcast, where we talk about the works of Rob Thomas, and I assure you it is not that one. Matt, what do you do?
Wait, but it's also official. As of when we're recording, both of those podcasts are now also on the Certain Point of
Yes,
View
they
network.
are. We were recently added.
Yes. So exciting. Something that we haven't really talked about on any of the shows that I've been doing yet, because we're in the future, is I just like doing that at this point.
Talking about the future?
If you have suggestions, yes. If you have podcasts that you think might be a good fit for the Certain POV network, please send them our way. We are going to have some kind of official form eventually, so we can have candidates apply. But like, we're looking to grow this network, and we're doing it with you, the listener. So please go check out those 2 other podcasts. They're now all in one convenient place. I too have podcasts on the network. I have 2 others besides this one: Screen Snark, which we mentioned earlier, which I do with Rachel Quirky Shank, and then Fun and Games, which I also mentioned earlier, which I do with Jeff Moonen. And then I have one podcast that's not on the network, which has been my own project for a long time, called Crash Course Autographs, which is a interview series that both MJ and John have been on. I love doing this show. It's been kind of like my passion. I mean, they're all my passion project, but this interview show is my longest running podcast. And so if you don't check out anything else, but check out everything else of mine, check out Autographs, because as of when we're recording, the most recent interview I did with Mega Ran, nerdcore, rapper extraordinaire, gamer, and all-around cool person, is one of my favorite episodes I've done in a while. So definitely go check that out.
Thank you to Red Sphinx for our It's Okay to Be a Marshmallow t-shirt on Redbubble, featuring our favorite marshmallow, Kaden Alenko. You can find more of their work at Chaos Does Art on Instagram. We'd also like to thank Case Aiken for developing more amazing shirt designs that you can find through certainpov.com or on Teespring. And we'd also like to thank David Boyle for designing our logo, which you can also get on a shirt through Redbubble. Finally, thank you to Dan Bull for letting us use the Mass Effect rap for our theme music. I'm MJ.
And I'm Matt, aka Stormageddon.
And I'm John. We should go.
You're listening to Reignite. I'm Commander Shepard, and this is my favorite podcast on the Citadel.
Hey there, Screen Beans. Have you heard about Screen Snark?
Rachel, this is an ad break. They aren't Screen Beans until they listen to the show.
Fine. Potential Screen Beans. You like movies and TV shows, right?
I mean, who doesn't? Screen Snark is a casual conversation about the movies and television shows that are shaping us as we live our everyday lives.
That's right, Matt. We have a chat with at least one incredible guest every episode, hailing from all walks. We've interviewed chefs,
writers, costumers, musicians,
yoga teachers, comedians, burlesque dancers,
folks in the film and TV industry,
and more.
We'd be delighted for you to join us every other Monday on the Certain POV Podcast Network.
Or wherever you get your podcasts, fresh and tasty off the presses.
What? But that's not.
Can I call them Screen Beans now?
Fine.
Screen Beans.
So tune in and we'll see you at the movies or on a couch somewhere.
'Cause you're all Screen Beans now.
She will be mine.